Hi, it's Rory from counsellingtutor.co.uk, and it's been a while since I've done a book review, so I thought today I'd do a book review, and the book I've chosen is from PCCS Books, and it's called The Tribes of the Person-Centred Nation. Just a word about PCCS Books. They did send me an evaluation copy, so thank you very much. PCCS are the kind of books you would find in college or university libraries, in universities, I guess, all over the world who teach counselling and psychotherapy. They are an authoritative publisher and are quite a serious publisher of books, and I'm always heartened when I see my learners quoting from PCCS Books, because I know that they've gone in to do, in terms of their studies, to do really solid research and a really good information that's stored in this book. So first of all, let's just look at the history of this book. It's not a new book. It's been out about 10 years, I seem to remember. It was certainly in my faculty when I was a student, although I never ever got hold of a copy. And it was only when I graduated and went back to the faculty as a tutor, I discovered why, and the reason for it was that my colleagues had it on permanent loan. They had it as a desk copy. They had it on permanent loan, so us poor students never got to look at it. I think there's only one copy. So it just goes to prove how useful it was for the training, you know, for trainers. Why is it such an interesting book? Well, I thought I'd read a lot about the work of Carl Rogers, and I have, but one of the things that I really didn't crystallise in my mind was that Rogers didn't do this wonderful new idea of therapy on his own. A lot of people think that Rogers just invented it. That's not really the case. Rogers certainly was a revolutionary. He challenged the dominant therapies of the day, the analytical views of the psychoanalytical movement and the behaviourist views of the behaviourist movement. But he didn't do it on his own. And what Rogers seemed to be very good at was getting people to do some of the work for him, frankly. And what happened is that his students became researchers and practitioners and developed person-centred therapy in a number of different directions. And the book charts 6 different ideas in person-centred therapy. Now, I'm not going to mention them all because it won't make much sense on the video. You'd have to read the book. But if you are doing a person-centred counselling course, you will probably be doing an experiential version of it, an experiential one. But there are different views, and in fact there is one directive form of person-centred therapy, which again is really interesting in its own right. The book's full of detail, it's full of historic facts, and it links theory to practice. I always think very, very important in any kind of counselling book that it isn't just dry theory. It links theory to practice, and that's so important because books should do that. Books in the world of therapy shouldn't just base themselves on heady theoretical ideas. They should evidence how the theory helps clients, and this book does. It gives a wonderful autobiographical account of Rogers' work from those early days in Chicago, where he ran not only a therapy establishment, but a training establishment. They also taught philosophy as well, didn't you, if you knew that? It also gives a hint to Rogers' influences, and I'm not going to bore you with a list of philosophers, but phenomenology was developed by a French philosopher called Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who got his ideas from a German philosopher. So when Rogers talks about the phenomenological approach, he didn't invent that. He got it from some solid research into a very interesting philosopher, Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Who is this book for? Well, I would say it is certainly a book for students. If you're on a level 3 course and you're just starting your journey into counselling and psychotherapy, this will live with you all through your training, and certainly it will take you through into qualified practice, because it is just so involving and has such a span of information. The contributors read like a who's who of authoritative voices in the world of person-centred therapy, and I'll just read a few out. Tony Merry, Campbell Purton, Nick Baker, Robert Elliott, Mick Cooper and Richard Worsley. You know, these are people who have written books in their own right, and they're contributors to it. And as I said, the book is a second edition, but it does feel like it's been rewritten from the ground up. It feels very fresh. One of the things that I was really fascinated with were the developments of Roger's therapy after his death in 1987 in La Jolla, California. And certainly there are chapters dedicated to fragile process, Margaret Huff's idea. There's relational depth, which of course is Dave Means, as well as the new dialogical theories that are gaining so much ground in the world of person-centred therapy. So this is really a practitioner's book. It gives you an idea of what can be done in the world of person-centred therapy, and also the latest thinking that's going on, because person-centred therapy, you know, still is a vibrant living therapy that's still being discussed and refined. So that's refreshing to know from the book. The cost. Well, academic books aren't the same cost as a book you buy maybe from Tesco if you're going on your holidays. So don't expect to pay £4 or £5. This book is £18 if you buy it directly from PCCS Books, and I strongly suggest that you do. And the reason for it is to support a very well-known publisher and an independent publisher. If you buy it off the big book companies, you'll pay about £1.50 extra. So there's a good reason to buy it directly from the publisher. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to PCCS Books for giving me an evaluation copy. I've already started writing in the margins and putting post-it notes in, and when I go back to college it will certainly be at my right hand along with Person-Centred Counselling Action and the other book that I use, which is Learning and Being by Tony Merry, Standards and Ethics in Counselling. They all are stacked up not far from my teacup, and are so useful for students. So I hope that's been useful for you. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I'm going to get stuck in and read this book when I've turned the lights off and switched the video, just so I can get a bit more information. And as always, thank you for watching. Thank you.